What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Rover Sports podcast. It is late on a Tuesday night, and a lot of exciting things going on in the NFL. Our Jewish friends have a holiday tomorrow, and this is a fun little prelude here. It seems like the Jewish holiday is usually earlier in the year, but it's in October this year. My good buddy Dave joins me. Davey Horn's up there in Jersey. How are you, my friend?
I am doing great. How are you today, Spencer?
Doing quite well.
How was the brisket, the matzo ball soup tonight? How was all that?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, the brisket is always one of my favorites. Like, you can't go wrong with that. Brisket and gravy. I am a turkey person, but there was no turkey. But you got to go matzo ball soup. You got to go brisket. I'm not a kugel fan, and I'm not really like I can eat carrots on occasion for my eyesight, but it's not like that's going to be a game changer.
Well, sure. Spencer, I need to eat a lot of carrots after my picks last week because I need to really check on my sight because last week my picks were awful. So the carrots this week, I've been eating them by the pounds, and hopefully come Friday we will fix that problem. Well, let's recap the week.
American carrots, of course, because you had the most American picks of all time last week, if I recall.
America let me down last week, but you know what? I'm still as American as it is.
You know what? The Navy really I think, Tulane, the Green Wave?
Tulane, the Green Wave, and then Air Force was up 5 or 6 late, and Navy scores a touchdown, and then
who was favored in that game?
Air Force by 3. So Navy scored late to go ahead. Did a little pitchy woo woo, and Navy wound up winning the game by maybe 9 or something like that.
You look like you were doing perfect.
And then that's how that goes.
Pastrami.
Well, pastrami. There you go.
That's what Chris Senor says. All these guys are wonderful people. Oscar, Egan Sadler, who might be a 49ers fan. G-Men 409, he's criticizing me, and I got to address this right now. G-Men 409 criticizing me because I hosted this fantasy football league, right? And I've always wanted to do a dynasty league because when you're in a dynasty league, it means you have to be friends with people for about maybe the rest of your life or maybe like 10 years. And I always wanted to be a GM, and I always wanted to scheme people for like second and future third round picks. And I ended up doing like this league on the Sleeper Fantasy app. I know I might be boring you with the story, but I did the league on the Sleeper Fantasy app, and now I'm the guy that's pretty much checked out. My team is absolutely awful. I drafted all these rookies like Andy Isabella, like Dawson Knox. These guys barely even play football. And I'm the commissioner, and now I'm pretty much I pretty much took the league, and now I'm kind of quitting on my own league, and my YouTube subscribers are now able to call me out on it, like my man G-Man 409.
Spencer, have some integrity, my man. Have some integrity. Just because you're losing doesn't mean you get to tank and not pay attention like the Miami Dolphins. Have some integrity and play the weeks.
Listen, I'm Sam Hinkie. You know what? And I'm also giving because
I'm not trusting your process.
The winner of that league, is going to get a prize, and I'm giving for the people that have that were registering for that league. I'm a giver.
Spence, I don't trust your process. Get back in it, make some moves, and let's go. You still have next year and the year after. Come on, Spence.
I got to draft Jaleel Okafor.
Maybe Jaleel Okafor. Maybe we go back and draft Jamarcus Russell.
MCW.
Exactly. Come on, man.
All righty. A lot of good people in here. The Jets are back, somebody said. We'll see if the Cowboys can be back this week. Let's start off with the big story, okay? And this is a fun story on multiple levels. It's Baker Mayfield. By the way, tonight there was a rumor going out on Instagram that Odell wanted out of Cleveland. That would have been amazing. But that'll happen in 14 days. So we had Baker Mayfield, Richard Sherman. Full disclosure, I like Richard Sherman. He's very intense. He's a great cornerback. We had that discussion on the phone. Unfortunately, he over-exaggerated a story. I don't think it's a big deal unless you really want to get offended by it. It made Baker Mayfield out to be like he didn't shake his hand. Baker Mayfield, he's in all these commercials. He's marrying this girl. He's using this walk-on thing. He's been acting like a punk all offseason long. So I'm Team Sherman and the 49ers. But in this case, Baker Mayfield did shake Richard Sherman's hand. I mean, what do you think of this whole story? And then we're going to get into the Browns' problems from last night.
Non-story. Richard Sherman probably has CTE. He just talks just to talk. He's one of my favorite players of all time, Richard Sherman, but I'm pretty sure he has CTE or something because his recollection of a lot of these things or either just made up or...
He actually talks very intelligently, though.
He's a
Stanford guy, but I don't know what... Everything he said is spot on. I don't know what he's smoking, though, with this story.
Yeah, I'm just joking about the CTE thing. But because he can't... He's just a guy that... You know what Richard Sherman is? He's a guy that loves to stir the pot. If there's a pot, he's stirring it. He might be at home right now stirring a pot of soup because that's what he does. He doesn't care. He basically talks over every reporter, which I love it because these reporters have basically nothing to add most of the time but garbage. And you know what? He tells it like it is. This time he didn't. You know what? They don't like Baker Mayfield. I think that's more the point that, we don't like Baker Mayfield. We embellish the story a little bit. Guess what, Baker? You want to do something about it? Get up off the mat and win this Sunday because other than that, it's a non-story.
Guess what? It's a non-story. One guy's headed to the Hall of Fame. The other guy looks like he could be at Dunkin' Donuts in 2 weeks in Baker Jakes Mayfield. All right. Go ahead. You have the floor on this one, Dave. What is the problem with the 2019 Cleveland Browns? Who are the culprits? What is going on?
Okay, well, I think my first biggest problem, it starts with the offensive line. I really believe it. I think the offensive line is weak. Honestly, I can't sit here and tell you every name of every player on the line. I just watched that game last night, and I understand that it's an elite pass rush. I don't think there's a better D-line than the San Francisco 49ers, D Ford, Joey Bosa, DeForest Buckner. We could go on and on. These guys are high draft picks, highly paid players. These guys are great. Offensive line is giving Baker no time. That's the first issue. Next issue is because of that, Baker Mayfield, even when he does get time, he doesn't stay in the pocket. He bails out every play. So I don't know if he's feeling a little David Carr syndrome or what, but he's bailing out of the pocket every single play. And then we're going to get to Baker here on this one. And then when he does have the throw to make it, he's missing these throws left and right. And I'm not criticizing him on the should have had a touchdown to Antonio Callaway last night. I think everyone in America who watched that game knows it. But still at the same time, he threw that ball low and inaccurate. Callaway should have made the play. Very unfortunate result. But you look at that, the one play to Odell that's overthrown, and Odell, there's no one within 5-10 yards of him. I think there's another play that
he could have caught that ball.
Yeah, he could have caught it. Don't get me wrong, but still, the throw wasn't good. I mean, if Baker Mayfield makes the throw that Mahomes would make, Tom Brady makes, Odell has that ball and he's going with it, and he's gaining another. If Odell catches that ball, it's done right there. It's a sprawled out catch. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
A good quarterback makes that throw. And then these guys are going for another 10, 15 yards or whatever they're going for. These throws are highly inaccurate. I mean, 8 of 22 last night, something like that. I mean, that's whatever it was. It got awful,
Yeah.
And it's just all around. The offense is stale. I think Freddie Kitchens is in way over his head. And then maybe next week he'll have a good game here and there. I don't think Freddie Kitchens is going to be a highly successful NFL coach. I think he's got great players around him. He'll win his 7, 8, maybe 9 games here, give or take whatever that number will be. You'll say we need to give Freddie Kitchens more time. I've seen enough. I know that in 2 years, 3 years, this is not a formula that's really going to work long term. Should have hired someone else as a coach. They didn't. They made their bed. They need to get an offensive line. And, the defense is terrible, but honestly, another story for another day. 31 points. You can still win the NFL giving up 31 points. Can't win scoring 3.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is that John Dorsey got a little too rich for his breeches. I mean, John Dorsey in this case is the main guy to blame because the Cleveland Browns were a very nice little small school. They're a small town homegrown team. And you had all the right ingredients. You had a young quarterback that was gaining confidence, but he hadn't gone full Hollywood yet. And Baker Mayfield in the offseason, getting married, going full Hollywood. I'm not saying that that's the problem, but getting Odell Beckham is definitely a problem because with Freddie Kitchens, it was so much distraction with the media. All the expectations went through the roof when you bring in an Odell Beckham Jr., and it's really not healthy for team camaraderie. They also bring in Greedy Williams. They're bringing in a Kareem Hunt, who is another huge distraction. It's a fantasy football team. It's lipstick on a pig. Because the trenches is where you win in this league, and giving up Kevin Zeitler, giving up a Jabril Peppers, and also, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't get why Cleveland just didn't wait and sit around, and I don't know why they just didn't run it back with Greg Williams and let Freddie be the OC. Because, well, why not? Why not? Why did you have to force the move of Freddie Kitchens, force him to be a head coach when Greg Williams was doing a decent job? Like, they should have just kept the same team intact. They're a lot worse this year than they were last year.
So you would know the name. I'm drawing a blank here. Who was their offensive coordinator last year? Because it wasn't Kitchens.
Todd Haley?
Whoever it was
with
last
Hugh
year.
Jackson?
Whoever the offensive coordinator was with Greg Williams, because it wasn't Freddie Kitchens. Because remember, Freddie was just their quarterback coach.
No, Freddie got elevated. He was calling the plays when they were winning the games last year, when they were beating Atlanta. Okay. So Freddie was calling the plays.
Because everyone attributes Baker Mayfield. I have to look this up. I'm not on the. It looks bad that I don't know this name. Greg Williams in an interview said that it was someone else who basically was the ascendants of Baker Mayfield. It wasn't Freddie Kitchens.
It wasn't Frederick. When did he say this?
When they played the Jets, they said it was this guy. I forget what his name is. Maybe one of the YouTube people know, or they can look it up while we're doing this.
Is it a quarterback coach?
I didn't think Freddie Kitchens was their last year.
Well, Todd Monken is now an OC over there, but Freddie Kitchens took over that ship
because Greg Williams gave all the credit, and there's other people who say on ESPN. I'm drawing a blank here. I apologize.
All right, it has to be the QB coach then.
Yeah, whoever it was, whatever his name is, Greg Williams said this is the guy that transformed Baker, did all the things. Really helped to take the next step forward. It's like you got rid of the guy.
Ken Zapansky?
Yes, I think that's the name. That might be the name. There's an article that, when they were coming and playing the Jets, where, Greg Williams rips them all and then says it all. It's like, just because Freddie Kitchens was this guy's friend, that was John Dorsey's worst move. I don't necessarily agree with the Odell take in the sense of, I don't think Odell's the problem. I don't think he's been a distraction there in any way other than the watches, which really, to me, is a non-distraction.
Yeah, but he's a distraction in the expectation and in the meeting room. Because if they have Jarvis Landry, nobody's talking about the Browns like they're any good. And also, Odell Beckham's a huge distraction because when whatever Odell Beckham does, like say the Browns win the game against Baltimore, which they did, but Odell has 3 catches. A lot of people are going to say to Freddie Kitchens, why don't you utilize Odell Beckham Jr.? Where if Odell wasn't there at all, you never have to look for him. And I think Eli Manning, I think you'd agree with me here, Eli Manning threw way more interceptions because he was trying to force feed the ball to the young superstar. He was throwing the double coverage.
I mean, with that theory, which I actually don't necessarily disagree with that theory, you could say the same thing for Julio Jones. You could say the same thing for DeAndre Hopkins. You could say the same thing for any good receiver in the NFL when they don't catch the ball.
Any great receiver. And Odell Beckham, he had the watches. He's not to the level of Antonio Brown, but he does do the interviews with Josina Anderson. He does go on social media all the time. He did bash the New York Giants. And the best teams in the league, I mean, I knew you were going to say something, but it's Buffalo, it's Kansas City, it's New England. It's the 40. You think the 49ers had a star receiver? Absolutely not. They're tracking out Dante Pettis and Marquise Goodwin, you know?
Well, it goes back to your point where I think the loss of Zeitler, and I think I'm not even saying Jabril Peppers as much. Where obviously it's part of the loss, but I really don't think that's what makes them struggling. But even that 17th overall pick that everyone said was a steal for the Browns, if that's used on offensive linemen, I mean, you're talking about the offensive line could look much different. And, this passing game with Callaway, with Landry, with Nick Chubb, I disagree on the Kareem Hunt take. I think that's going to be a great signing. I think the guy's dynamic, and you got him for nothing, and you gave up nothing for him. So
I actually don't think he's not a locker room problem, actually. I really don't think he is.
I think that's a great ad. I think the Odell Beckham, where I don't think that he's a distraction. I agree with the fact that you lost Zeitler and that 17th overall pick, which could have been used on the offensive line or anywhere else. Maybe you're just seeing the.
But here's the argument. Here's my argument. Kirk Cousins has Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. And if if Diggs left, if Diggs was never there, people wouldn't be as critical on Kirk Cousins. Look at Derek Carr. Derek Carr has no receivers in Oakland except for Tyrell Williams. Derek Carr is free to do whatever he would like. Same with even Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, who aren't known as elite wide receivers. Matt Stafford doesn't have the expectations. Baker Mayfield now, he has so much expectations because, with Baker Mayfield, the offseason, you have Matthew Berry and all these nerds telling you Baker Mayfield's going to be an MVP. This offense is going to be unstoppable. Look at Callaway and Njoku, the guy T. Higgins, Odell, Jarvis Landry. It puts all this pressure on Baker Mayfield. Last year, Baker Mayfield was just playing the position, man. And you know what? Last year, he's not a great quarterback, but I know Baker Mayfield is better than the guy we saw on Monday. Like, I know he can play.
Can I tell you something, though? Baker Mayfield's struggles are not related to Odell Beckham right now. It's related to the offensive line. I don't think expectation has anything to do with this because that's all what's it called. That's reporter talk. Expectation, Baker Mayfield does not feel that expectation. I think what you're seeing with Baker Mayfield is he was anointed too quickly. And maybe you're seeing a guy taking a step back when last year teams weren't taking the Browns quite as seriously, for a lot of his success, not for nothing, it's when the Browns were maybe not the best team on your schedule. It's kind of like teams will view it as an off week in some sense, look past them. And it wasn't great. And Baker Mayfield, to this point, to say that Odell added the pressure to Baker, that's unfair because Baker was 11-1 to win the MVP before that they traded for Odell Beckham. So there was all the expectation in the world for Baker Mayfield. And
and last year they did.
He went to 9-1. But
I think Greg Williams was winning games last year. Steve Wilkes, I don't think is that good of a defensive coordinator now. He's done okay. But this Cleveland Browns team, when you have Odell Beckham, you just become a lightning rod for the media. And Baker Mayfield, I think it's all the media, it's all the distraction. And also Freddie Kitchens is a first-year coach. And John Dorsey, there's a reason why John Dorsey is not with Kansas City. There's a reason John Dorsey left Green Bay. It's because this guy has a huge ego.
Yeah, I agree. I think distractions come with Baker Mayfield. I kind of disagree with the Odell Beckham Jr. as a distraction take. It just hasn't been one. I would agree with the take with Odell more about depleting your offensive line. I think that's a fair assessment. I think it's a valid assessment. I think Baker himself is a bigger distraction than Odell. Just is what it is. He's on Hulu, has live sports every 5 seconds. He's cleaning his house, on the commercial, which is a dog pound every 2 seconds. I see Baker Mayfield more than I see LeBron James on TV, for crying out loud.
You see him more than the Greek Freak.
Don't tell me it's Odell Beckham who's the distraction right now. That's all I'm going to say.
No,
I haven't heard much about Odell.
No, but he was a distraction in New York. He's actually been on better behavior in Cleveland. Correct?
I would 100% agree. I 100% agree. I agree with your take on the offensive line. I don't think he's been a distraction, though. I think that John Dorsey has done a bad job constructing the team. I think the media can't see it. And as you told me on the phone the other day, these teams with these super wide receivers are never any good because all the money goes to that position, and the NFL is not a league where you can invest heavily into the wide receiver position. It just doesn't historically work.
No, it doesn't. And the best teams in the league are not the Texans. They're not the Atlanta. They're not, the Vikings. And then they just want to blame the quarterbacks for for their failures. Let's talk about the 49ers. I said the 49ers are a championship team. Right now they have Seattle and the LA Rams in this division. They got to win this division. They haven't even played an NFC West game yet. I think their defense is awesome. I think Sherman's added great leadership. Jaquiski Tartt's having a year. Nick Bosa. The D-line, of course. I don't want to go on and steal your thunder, but this 49ers team, what did you think of them last night? What do you think about Garoppolo and the San Francisco?
See, the funny thing is, I remember you telling me to watch the 49ers. They're my Super Bowl out of the NFC. And now there's no criticism. You've called this. You've been all over the 49ers. But the one thing that no one saw with the way that the 49ers are doing with it, and you did it and no one else did, I certainly wouldn't have, so I'm not really singling out you, is it's kind of with the lack of really good play from Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo's been okay, to be really honest. He's been okay. He misses throws, this, that, the other thing.
Yeah.
The run game is dominant. And you know what this goes back to? That Atlanta Falcons of, what year did they go to the Super Bowl? 16, maybe?
Yeah.
2016. Kyle Shanahan, once again, he's got that Breda. He's got Brandon Tevin Coleman. What does it remind you so much of?
Freeman.
It reminds you of that Freeman and Coleman. And I know that Julio Jones was the big name back then and stuff like that. Ryan was throwing for a lot of yards. But what did it all start with there? The Atlanta Falcons started with the run. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at it. That team ran the ball like crazy. Kyle Shanahan has established this again. The run schemes are unbelievable. We can get into how great the defense is, but this offense is a beautiful thing. It really is kind of, you look at Kyle Shanahan with the run, it's very reminiscent of his father. He's better in the passing game, but this team starts with the run every game. Garoppolo, I think, is still kind of feeling himself out with the knee. He's been okay. He's 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Had his best game of the year probably last night, to be honest with you, as far as efficiency. And the defense is just flat out elite. I had not seen them play live last night. I was highly impressed. Joey Bosa is going to be probably a top 5 defensive end when it's all said and done by the end of the year. You know? And that's just a rookie.
He's for real. Listen, he's not the most athletic guy, but he'll feast on average defenders. John Lynch. Well, for what John Lynch has built here, it's an incredible team that he's built. And you bring in Sherman, and I'm impressed by Witherspoon and the development of these cornerbacks are really playing at a high level. The D Ford trade was absolutely brilliant. DeForest Buckner and Bosa. When you have a good defensive line, you can win a championship. The thing I like so much about Shanahan's offense is I love the play action bootlegs. And you saw last night, I think George Kittle, if you take away quarterbacks, I think he's a top 10 player at a skill position. He was a monster getting first downs. You see how important Kyle Juszczyk is. And the thing about the offense that I love so much, Dave, is how they really snap the ball quickly. They get up to the line of scrimmage. They snap it quickly. Jimmy Garoppolo is actually not wowing me that much with deep down the field throws. But in that second half, when they came out of intermission and they needed a touchdown, Garoppolo was smart. He manages the game, and he's very timely. And if you look at this dude's record, even when he was with the 49ers before he tore his ACL, Dave, he went 5-0. I'm pretty sure you know that. The guy's record is like 8-2 as a starter. And eventually that speaks volumes because C.J. Beathard had the same exact team, but he's just not a timely quarterback. And Jimmy's just smart. He's not going to wow you with the biggest arm in the world, but the guy just fits like a glove in the offense. And as long as he stays healthy, this team this could be the year. And also, the 49ers are very hungry. They've never gotten to the top. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles and the LA Rams, and even the Saints. They've been to the mountaintop. The 49ers are climbing, and they're that team that's going to climb this year. The 49ers and the Bills. And you got to be hungry and go on that climb and go on that journey, and that's what this team's doing right now.
I 100% agree with you. Jimmy makes the throws when needed to. And the other thing, go back to John Lynch. When they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to that extension, everyone was like, how could you give Garoppolo that money? You know, this, that, the other thing. In today's market, that's a bargain for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's making like $24-25 million, something like that. It's an absolute bargain having him locked up for that number. It's honestly cheap when you see these quarterbacks going for 35, now almost 40 million. So they've got a bargain there. I mean, they've done a great job of drafting these second, third round type of wide receivers, kind of to the point where you don't need the superstar receiver, you know, for big money. You know, these guys are timely. They all come off these reverses once a game. You know, George Kittle comes off for a tight end reverse sweep, whatever you want to call it, you know.
And he just fights
thing.
for those extra yards.
It's a beautiful thing. Let's go on to the next team. We could talk about the 49ers all day. Right now, the most impressive team in the NFC as of week
no,
5.
and trust me, I called it, you know, a couple of years ago, and I know Jimmy got hurt. The other team, and you can feel free to mention the next team. I want to give a little shout out to a team that I doubted. And this is a team out in also in the Northern California district. It is the Oakland Raiders. I put the done chain on Derek Carr. I said that Derek Carr was absolutely finished, and I jinxed the living crap out of him because I said Derek Carr after that Vikings game, I said he's going to suck again, and he's gone. And now they've won a couple games, including beating the Indianapolis Colts.
I think what happened with the Raiders, and if you remember back to our first week 1 recap, I've been very high on the Raiders. I got a little bit lower on them, but I didn't count them out. I think John Gruden is just a hell of a football coach. I'm not calling him the best football coach in the NFL or even a top 5 coach, but what he does, this is his type of a team. You know, these guys, a bunch of journeymen with a competent quarterback. I don't think he's great by any means. And there's no superstar anywhere. You've got a dynamic running back, which John Gruden needs. And, you know, his team just plays hard as hell for him. You know, these guys obviously love him. They obviously love their position coaches or whatever, you know, coach they're playing. But they're running through the wall for these guys. I mean, I don't think you can find a team in the NFL that plays harder than the Oakland Raiders. They might have more skilled teams. Faster, quicker.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch, and everybody, you know, when people in the media gang up and bully somebody, that just makes me dig in and love that person even more. And that's what they did with John Gruden. They said he's archaic. Some people think he's all for ego and he doesn't love his players. I mean, John Gruden's the one, he'd probably be my favorite coach to play for in the NFL. Just his enthusiasm for the game. Josh Jacobs, it is an old school style attack. And I know Mike Mayock, he's a Philly guy. Mayock fits in like a glove. Reggie McKenzie and John Gruden, it was very awkward because they had no they had no parallels with each other, Dave. Reggie McKenzie and John Gruden. And then Amari Cooper wasn't really a Gruden guy either. The Khalil Mack thing happened. It was a very ugly, ugly year. But Mike Mayock, this draft class is ridiculous. I think Foster Moreau is the best player that nobody talks about. He's dynamic. You saw him at LSU, and he's a much better pro than he was in college. Hunter Renfrow is quite a find. it's a perfect team for John Gruden. And Derek's getting the ball out of his hands, and John's the coach of the year right now. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think Khalil Farrell has. I remember on draft night, everyone was doubting. Well, I don't have Khalil Farrell in my top whatever. You know. Well, you know what he does? He fits what they're asking him to do. He's getting pressure on the quarterback. I'm not sure about the sack numbers. He's active. He's everywhere on the field. You know, you obviously couldn't get Joey Bosa at that point. So, I mean, just because everyone doubted every move that Gruden and Mayock have made, you know, and then Gruden especially with the trading Khalil Mack, which I think was a good thing because it wasn't going to work there, if that makes sense. Obviously, Khalil Mack is what he is, but for whatever reason, it wasn't going to work there. So you move on, you know, and just you go. I mean, you don't get better at trading Khalil Mack, but I think it was a good move at the end of the day. And
yeah.
You know, and honestly, it probably helps this style of team because they have no real big money superstar. The only big money guy is Derek Carr, to be really honest. And this team seems to be bought all in, and it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, I think the team's really good. I mean, the loss of Abrams will hurt them down the stretch, but
it's a great story.
You know,
it is
a great story.
It's a terrific story. I want to give a shout out to Jalen Sesker. He's in the chat, but also UCF Jaguar is one of the best YouTubers out there. He's a Jaguar guy, and he made a video the other day about Gardner Minshew, one of your favorite players. And do you see Gardner still being the guy when Nick gets healthy this year?
I don't. I think Gardner will be the starting quarterback in 2020. I think that you went out, you spent $20 million on Nick Foles, whatever it was, 20, 19, 21. I don't know the exact number. You can type it in and correct me. I'm just going to say 20 as a round number, okay? He got hurt in the first half of the first game. Whenever he comes back, he will play. Gardner Minshew has been fantastic. There will be no one who will apologize more for Gardner Minshew than myself, but I get with the dynamics of the NFL. And Gardner has not gone and raised his team to, you know, first place in that division. They're 2-3. So, you know, you spent $20 million on a guy. Whenever he gets healthy, you're going to play him. I think Gardner will be a starting quarterback soon. I think that $20 million they will realize can be spent elsewhere to improve the team. Nick Foles will probably be cut at the end of the year, but barring Nick Foles coming back and just, you know, lighting it up. Don't get me wrong here. If he does that, he'll be the quarterback, but
I disagree because Gardner Minshew, he won that Broncos game. He came back and won that game, which they wouldn't have won. This week, the defense was atrocious. And and this goes into my next point about Jacksonville. Like, the Jaguars' culture is very weird. They have a head coach that's kind of a lame duck head coach. Their defense is very hit and miss. They have some talent on that defense, obviously, but still, McCaffrey had holes that you could drive a Mack truck through, you know? I mean, their defense really is inconsistent. They're not a consistently tight, cohesive unit. And a lot of it goes to locker room dynamics. And if I were dealing with Jalen Ramsey, I would just bench Jalen Ramsey, wouldn't even let him play football, and try to get a first-rounder for him. I would not play him. I don't even want him around the facility, but I don't know. It's very tough. I wouldn't play Jalen Ramsey. I'd look to get rid of him pretty soon. He's hanging out with Deshaun Watson, you know. That's like a player on the New York Giants hanging out in Dallas watching a football game. You know, that's like a player at Ohio State going to a Michigan game. So it's inexcusable. It's a nightmare. It's a headache. And he's just run out of excuses, Jalen Ramsey. It's just absurd at this point. The guy is a bully. He's a bully.
I agree, and the reason why you can't bench Jalen Ramsey if you're just going to get into the dynamics of this way, the NFLPA, you can't not activate him because Jalen Ramsey's contract, the way the NFL works on how many games you get activated for. You get paid more when you're active than not active. So if a guy is making $10 million a year and he gets hurt week one, he may only see like 5 of that 10. So It's a very interesting dynamic to that. He's going to have to be active every week that he says he wants to be out there. So if he wants to play, they're going to play him. I 100% agree. He's an absolute bully. He's being a jerk. I think they need to move on as quick as they can. I think the reality, the reason why they haven't moved on is because I bet you the market for Jalen Ramsey is not that great, contrary to what ESPN will have you think. I could be wrong, maybe, but if there was a good market for this, the move would be made. That's usually the way trades work. So I bet you Jalen, the people are like, Minka Fitzpatrick, they got traded for real quickly. Why? Because he's not a headache. He went out there and he played every week for the 2 weeks for the, whatever you call them, those Dolphins, whatever you want to call those guys. Jalen, no one wants to deal with it. I think he's a hard guy to move. It's going to be an interesting dynamic. I think it goes into the offseason unless the Jags are willing to take like a fourth or a third for him. I don't think that they're getting much. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I think it's close to an Antonio Brown situation. I'm not calling him Antonio Brown, but I think the situation's similar.
Wow. The Eagles were going to give up a first and a second for him.
That's not – let's put it this way. If they had a first-round pick for him, don't believe anything the media tells you. The media knows about as much as this as we do.
The media's
the
fake.
Media. I'm not going to start with this fake news media, but what's it called? These media, I'm going to go off topic here. When NBA free agency happens, out of nowhere you'll see some guy sign somewhere, like D'Angelo Russell to the Warriors. If you read all the reports afterwards, this was being constructed for a few weeks, right?
Right.
The media had no whiff of it because the media only knows what they think they know. They have no idea what these GMs are going to do. It just is what it is.
Well, it's tough.
The media knows nothing.
Well, there were people who knew a little bit about the rumors of Paul George and the Clippers, but they couldn't say anything.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you something right now.
Yeah. Inform.
I'm going to tell you something right now. No one knew. No one knew. And
not even Bill Simmons?
If Bill Simmons says he knew, he is the biggest liar in the world. Because if Bill Simmons knew, that means someone else knew, and it would have gotten broken. I don't believe in this. The media saying I knew something, but I had to respect my source and not say anything because these guys break things because that's what they do. If that makes sense.
Right.
That's just the way it works. The media doesn't know as much as they want to make you believe. I don't believe that the Eagles were giving a first and a second for Jalen Ramsey. I could be wrong here, but I don't believe that report because I really believe the Jags would have taken it at this point. It can't get much worse. Guys, no one wants the guy. It can't get much worse. And let's go to the next team because the Jaguars just
Let's go to
bad.
the damn next team. Well, yeah, let's go to a team that let's go to Thursday. All right, let's do it. What do you hope for the New York Giants in this game? Well, what are your expectations? Like what would it make you encouraged?
If Daniel Jones comes out healthy,
he's able to walk off on his own power.
If Daniel Jones is able to walk off under his own power, as a Giants fan, I will take nothing from this game either. If Daniel Jones throws 5 interceptions, guess what? I will take nothing from this game. I think as much as us.
Hey, that means Eli's coming back, baby. Eli,
we love him. We love Eli.
And he owns Foxborough. He won there one time.
He did, but I'm going to put this dynamic here. So Thursday Night Football, as much as we love it as fans, is the biggest joke in the NFL history. I mean, they're not going to play Sterling Shepard, obviously, because of concussions. Ingram doesn't have enough time to even come close to recovering. If he's out there, he's going to be out there at, a dynamic 60 to 70%. You're going to probably see a few more inactives out of nowhere, or, these guys don't have enough time to recover. The Giants will have no chance of being able to game plan for this one properly. Rookie quarterback going to New England, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Maybe there's a full moon and, I hit the lottery too and the Giants win, but It's
Yeah,
just
I doubt it, and
yeah.
the devil's advocate is that we did see a great Rams-Hawks game last Thursday, but Avonte Maddox, you saw two really scary injuries, like head injuries that happened in these in these Thursday night games, and most of the time the product is terrible. I'm trying to think of the solution.
I'm not.
The solution
I'm
might
not. What's it called?
what?
The game itself doesn't necessarily become bad. I'm talking about on Thursday night. There are more inactives on Thursday night than there are any other game of the week. We know that for a fact. So that's where I go with it.
And then you can get
These
like
guys
a
don't have
mini,
enough
you can
time
get
to
like a
recover.
mini bye week. Yeah, the Patriots defense is incredible. People are like they haven't played anyone, but and for Pat
The
Shermer,
NFL.
for Shermer, even as a Giants fan, Dave, I'll just be very quite frank with you. If the Arizona Cardinals beat the New York Giants in 2 weeks, this Giants team isn't going to the playoffs this year. And I'm not excited about Pat Shermer. And he's given me very few reasons to really get excited about Shermer. I would love a young coach to come in there, like even a high risk, high reward, trying to find the next Sean McVay sort of coach. And I just don't really trust the direction of the Giants. I mean, because you look at Oakland and they're a team that doesn't have a lot of talent and they're functioning. And I don't know. I just think a great coach can make way or can do better with just crap talent. There's other teams in this league that don't have good talent. I'm trying to think of another team that's surviving with bad talent. Maybe Detroit, for example. I don't know if Detroit has elite talent.
I'll put it this way, Spence. You could tell me whatever you want about the Giants, and we could talk about the talent and stuff like that. Driving to that game for the Jets, what I tell you, this defense is atrocious. I think the narrative around this team would be even much worse if Matt Gay or Guy, whatever the heck his name is,
it was Gay,
makes that 34-yard field goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it almost was like you got this false sense of hope when Guy misses a field goal. You go against the awful Redskins.
Yeah.
And the defense lacks talent. I mean, it just does. I mean, you can say anything you want. You can cook it up, make any excuse you want. You can look to certain bright spots at certain times. The defense sucks, and if you tell me otherwise, you're wrong.
And guess what? It wasn't like Kirk Cousins is suddenly found his mojo. Ryan Fitzpatrick would have diced him. I mean, you could pull Trent Edwards or Charlie Whitehurst out of the nursing home. You could pull out any I bet Dan Marino could have suited up. Those were the easiest pitches and catches. They just dominated. It was a different level. I mean, it was so easy for Kirk Cousins to find receivers. I mean, it was ridiculous.
I 100% agree.
It's ridiculous. I'm tired of waiting for the talent, though. I mean, this is gonna. I mean, if it's all about talent, Dave, we're gonna be waiting 2 or 3 more years before Saquon leaves, and it's gonna take. The Giants are like Nebraska. They need 3 recruiting classes. They need 3 draft classes. It's crazy. It's awful. But I think Dave Gettleman's gonna stick with us, though.
I think Gettleman will be there. I think it's one of these things you got to just kind of have to trust that maybe they'll get better over the next few years, and you'll kind of see how this thing builds. Hopefully it goes in the right direction, because this is not an overnight fix. There is no overnight fix with the Giants. It's a build. Maybe they're 8-8 next year. The next year after that, 9-7, 10-6, and hopefully that's what you would hope can happen.
You know what the good news is, though, too, is that when John Fox went 3-13, when Jeff Fisher went 4-12, especially with John Fox and the Bears, they still had a lot of defensive talent. So if Dave Gettleman just happens to hit on these draft picks and you can see some foundational pieces start to come up and you see some good young talent, then if Shermer sucks and you have a season where Pat Shermer embarrasses himself, the next coach can come in and you can quickly turn it around, with a Matt Nagy, a McVay, a freaking first-year coach in Frank Reich. So it's all about the draft class. It's all about the evaluation, because if Pat's not the guy, then the next guy can come in and take you somewhere quickly, in this NFL. So I guess that's a way to look at it.
Exactly. And it is what it is with the Giants right now.
I'm not sure Pat's the guy, though. Pat's not fun at all.
No, these guys are lame ducks most of the time until you got to get a little more talent. He's not going to be there long enough. Even if they go 7-9 next year, he's probably done. And they'll find that right guy for the job that they think can be that dynamic coach that takes you to the promised land. And hopefully that's the steps that they take. If they don't, then it's going to be a lot more long years for Giants fans.
Yeah. Look, we could talk about – you want to wrap up the show with talking about the Redskins and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Whatever you want. The Redskins, we can talk about them for a little bit. I think the Redskins, in my opinion, we can get into all the John Gruden. Jay Gruden could have done this, that, the other thing. The problem with the Washington Redskins, philosophically, is Bruce Allen. And obviously, Bruce Allen, that's an extension of Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder has no idea what he's doing in a football sense. I mean, we can get into personnel and coaching and all the stuff that you would want to get into. It's Dan Snyder, and he sticks by this guy Bruce Allen like no other. They just have no idea. It starts from the top, and they just have no idea how to trickle it going down. The team lacks direction. Dan Snyder a few years ago famously says, "I'm stepping back and letting the football people make all the decisions." Well, this year in the first round, you barge into that draft room and demand Dwayne Haskins when not one person wanted him, not even your GM wanted him. So, and it's not just that pick. It's a lot of things. I mean, you have like 4 quarterbacks on the contract right now. I don't even know what the heck is going on there. I know Alex Smith is hurt. You got Colt McCoy, you got Case Keenum, Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins. It's a lot of money being invested in the quarterback position where you're getting no production out of it. It's sickening when you really think about it. It just
the Landon Collins, the Josh Norman, just spending money to spend money.
Exactly. And then, what tells you everything you need to know about the Washington Redskins? It's when Trent Williams refuses to even negotiate with them. It's trade me or I won't play ever again. Because I will not play for you. And his problem was never with Gruden. It was as an organization, the medical staff, the way things are run. And I think that tells a lot about where the Redskins are today, more about the guy who's not playing than the guys who are. Because if you listen to him, just the things that were wrong, he's pointing out medical staff, personnel. To me it says a lot because this guy walks away from a lot of money this year, not signing that franchise tag, about $19 million. The guy has made a lot of money, but anyone could use the $19 million.
It's like the old Lions. It's like the old Lions with Calvin Megatron Johnson. It's kind of like that. And the thing is with the Washington Redskins is that a lot of the players, they liked Jay Gruden, but it's like Albert Hainsworth again. They're just spending money. There's no control or organization. The stadium it's a fine state. It's a fun to go to, but it doesn't really have the perks of the other places. And I think Snyder cares. He's just way too stubborn. It's almost like making fun of somebody, the Washington Redskins, that just haven't had really anything. And they just haven't been a threat for a while. And it just was malpractice to select, that quarterback, like that happened. It just was a ridiculous decision.
Yeah, because I'm not going to sit here and criticize Jay Gruden because I don't think he got, when I say a completely fair shake in the sense of, the guy from the reports you're reading had no say on the personnel over whatever the 3 years or 4 years he was there. And you just look at it, you start reading the track record and some of the stories of the guys and how they got fired. They fired Marty Schottenheimer back in the day. He's like the only coach under Dan Snyder wasn't under 500. And they fired him because he was demanding more power with personnel say, and they didn't like it.
Right.
Right. It's just like it seems like he's got a baby on the top. A guy who. You listen to the story. He listens to the games with his father as a kid. Dan Snyder with nothing. He builds up this radio broadcasting communications thing, makes a lot of money, and the Redskins are his big toy at this point. The guy just is clueless as can be, and I think that the Washington Redskins are a lot like my New York Knicks. You have a clueless owner, and they will never be good until this guy sells the team, and I don't know that he ever will.
Yeah, and that's a story for another day with Kevin Durant. I'm sure he's saying more comments about the Knicks.
Yeah, but it wasn't really to get into the Knicks. All I'm saying is this guy, you're not winning anything with Dan Snyder as your owner. It's hard to say, well, the owner makes that much of a difference. Well, it does, because this guy, until he surrounds himself with actual football people and not just listening to one guy, Bruce Allen, and you kind of do it where you have multiple guys that report to you
and goes hands
you
off.
have multiple thoughts.
And goes hands off. All right.
Yeah, it's just a bad situation at best.
We're here. We got Davey Longhorns joining me for our weekly podcast. Friday show is going to be a lot of fun. Friday or Saturday, we're going to get into picks. I got some really good. I'm really excited about college picks this week specifically. I'm just going to say this. We discussed this too. I'm not worried about the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. They can't win every game. I still think that they'll be there at the end. Their defensive line, I actually think it's a good defensive line. It was just a brilliant game plan by the Colts. And the Colts, I don't think the teams have the personnel necessarily to do that exact same game plan against KC.
Yeah, I agree. As you said, we talked on Sunday night about it, or whatever it is, Monday night. You're not going to go undefeated in the NFL. Only one team that's ever done it. Panic buttons, don't hit them. Tyreek Hill is still not back. It's just, it is what it is. Mahomes is a little gimpy. They'll be fine. The defense looks fine. You gave up 19 points to the Colts, who are a much better team than people give them credit for. This Colts team is very, very good. It's just unfortunate that they do not have Andrew Luck this year. But, that kind of is what it is. If they did have Andrew Luck, you could be looking at a real Super Bowl contender.
And, Dave, I want to thank you for joining the podcast again. It's been a great time discussing football with you late here on a Tuesday evening. Dave, thanks so much, man, and we'll get to the picks and the previews later this week.
Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em horns, indeed. All righty, guys, thanks, and see you later.